But let's hit this story, which I didn't expect to wake up to today. I was on the radio this morning and they asked me about it, and I was sort of caught unawares that if Manchester United qualify for the Champions League and Nice qualify for the Champions League, one of them will not be allowed to play in the Champions League. And apparently this is set out in UEFA rules, and there is no avoiding it for Manchester United. My answer to that this morning, without doing the research, was, well, look, we don't know the detail of this takeover yet, so we can't really comment on if, buts and maybes. But there is absolutely no doubt that there is a very strong scenario where Manchester United qualify for the Europa League or the Champions League and are not allowed to play in it because Nice are in it. So we'll talk about that, of course, and we'll delve into the whys and wonders of that, which to me would be, I don't know what you describe this as, because when Qatar was buying us, the press never shut up about this PSG Man United link, even though the Qatari bid did a lot of work to say we're not linked to PSG. And the press never shut up about it. They never shut up about it at all. And yet nobody really focused on the fact that Sir Jim Ratcliffe actually owns Nice and is buying part of Man United. Like, that's factual. But it was always about the Qatari link to PSG, which they sort of said wasn't there. But factually, there is one with Manchester United, Sir Jim and Nice. So this is what the UEFA source is saying. Let me get this out so people can get their heads around it, because it takes a little bit of time. And people will quite rightly start shouting about RB Leipzig and RB Salzburg, who have played in the same league. But you're wrong. You're wrong about that. That's not going to be an excuse, and I'll explain why that's not an excuse. This is what has been said by a UEFA source. This has come out in The Sun today, but it's in numerous other outlets. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's ownership of Nice could see United banned from playing in Europe next season. Under UEFA's multi-club ownership rules, the only way United and Nice can both play in Europe is if, in the next campaign, is if one seals an automatic Champions League spot and the other qualifies directly for the Conference League. What about the Europa League? We'll tell you about that. If both finish in the Champions League spots in their respective divisions, the team that finishes higher of the two gets the place with the other banned from Europe. Incredible, incredible. And this is what a UEFA source has said. As the rules stand, it's a clear situation. Ineos own Nice and are set to have a significant role in running Manchester United. Unless the regulations are changed or Ineos sell one of their stakes, they cannot both play in European competitions unless one is in the Champions League and the other is in the Conference League. Wow, that's quite a big statement. If Red Bull can get around it, so can United, says Rory C. Well, you're wrong, but I'll explain why that is in a moment. But let's give clarity to the United situation. As things stand, Nice, I think, are either first or second in the French league. If Man United finish third and Nice finish second, we are out of the Champions League and the Europa League under these rules. For the simple reason, it's who finishes higher in their respective leagues if there's dual ownership. So if Man United finish second, but Nice win the league in France, Nice go into the Champions League and Manchester United go into the Conference League under these rules that people are talking about. Why can't we go in the Europa League? Because if Nice are in the Champions League and finish third in their group and drop into the Europa League, hello Manchester United, which can't happen. So it's a scenario where at the moment, under these rules, if Nice finish above us, even if we finish in a Champions League spot, if they finish higher than us, we're in the Conference League. We're not even in the Europa League. So if Nice finish, I think in the French League, if you finish third in the French League, you go into a playoff where you could end up in the Europa League. If we finish sixth for a Europa League spot and they go in the Europa League, they finished higher in their league, so we go down into the Conference League. It's not a crazy situation. It's a dangerous situation because not being in the Champions League is going to cost United 50 million quid. So is there a loophole around this? You would suspect there is a loophole because I don't understand why Manchester United would risk that amount of money going out of the football club. Imagine the scenario where Nice win the French League or come second and United get fourth and we have to go into the Conference League because of Sir Jim. Now, there's a lot of question marks around Sir Jim working with the Glazers anyway. He doesn't want we're in the Conference League when we should be in the Champions League because you own two football clubs. But this has come from UEFA. This is what the rules are, and we have to accept that this is a story that technically does have legs. I have my doubts about how this will work, but for those people who are saying, well, what about Leipzig and you're absolutely right. What about Leipzig? What about Salzburg? They're both owned by RB. This is an article from February this year. Manchester United links to new Qatari owners have raised concerns that the club could have issues playing in Europe. Effectively, UEFA rules state that clubs cannot hold shares or have management control in another club taking part in a UEFA competition, nor can individuals and legal entities have ownership or management control over more than one club. So what about Leipzig and Salzburg, who are owned by the same company, both playing in Europe despite their connections? Well, in 2017, UEFA's club finance investigators noticed an unusually high level of players and loans transfers between the two teams. Some of these transfers from Salzburg to Leipzig included Sesko, Keita, Sabitzer, Upamecano and Szoboszlai. They also highlighted the common visual identity, similar branding, which nods at similar badges and kits. However, Salzburg chose to remove members of staff that were allegedly linked to Red Bull, and their cooperation deal with Leipzig was ended with the sponsorship scaled back. Once all these changes were made, UEFA then accepted that there was insufficient evidence that the clubs had a shared ownership and they were both allowed to compete in Europe. However, things may end up being more difficult for other teams following similar paths, with UEFA speaking strongly on multi-club ownership in its annual financial study from 2022. They said the rise of multi-club investment has the potential to pose a material threat to the integrity of European club competitions, with a growing risk of seeing two clubs with the same owner or investor facing each other on the pitch. So therefore, this doesn't look particularly good for Manchester United, and you cannot use the Leipzig and Salzburg argument because it was investigated by UEFA and they found no sufficient evidence. Obviously, it's very different with Man United and Nice because Sir Jim Radcliffe and Ineos own Nice and they're about to buy 25% of Manchester United. It's going to be one to keep a watching brief on because ultimately, if we do not, many of you will be saying we won't even be in the Champions League anyway. It's the Europa League as well. We can't go into the Europa League if Nice are in the Champions League. We're in the Conference League next year. Under these rules, it's worrying. So what do we need to happen? We need Nice to drop out of the top four, basically. We need Nice to finish lower than us. That's what my interpretation of this. If it's going to, look, we can get very technical, can't we? But having read it, looked over stuff, done some research on the Leipzig situation, as I said, basically Man United need to finish higher in the league, in the Premier League, than Nice finish in their league, which isn't necessarily easy because Nice are doing well in a league that's not as good as the Premier League. It's a concern. Is Sir Jim Radcliffe going to sell Nice? That's what needs to happen. I don't know. But this to me is another example of we don't have the detail. People are saying Jim's going to own all of Man United. We don't know that. Some people are saying he's going to sell Nice. We don't know that. This could be a concern because it's not just this season. Imagine if Nice keep finishing above Man United in relation to their position in the French league. We won't be allowed to play in the Champions League and the Europa League. It's weird. It's really weird. And I didn't expect to be talking about it this morning, but from everything I've read and all the research I've done, we're going to have to wait to see what the detail is into Jim Radcliffe's acquisition of Manchester United because UEFA are going to be looking at this. And as I say, Nice are doing very, very well at the moment. If Nice finish above us, they will get into the Champions League and we won't be even be able to play in the Europa League. We'll be in the Conference League.